Now, the general weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm meteorologist David Kramer with Alaska Weather. Thanks for joining us for the general weather section of our broadcast. As always, please visit our website, weather.gov, to get any updates to the forecast or any watches, warnings, or advisories that we might have out for your area. Starting off, we want to take a look at the snowfall record that Anchorage is quickly approaching here. You can see in the third column that Anchorage is now at 130.5 inches. The all-time on-record amount is 134.5 inches, and we have a couple potential rounds of snow coming up soon that could add a few more inches to the total. Taking a look now at the watches, warnings, and advisories that we have out for the state. Of note, we have several watches along the west coast. We have a strong storm coming into the Bering Sea on Tuesday night time frame. That's going to bring the potential for blizzard conditions to areas of St. Lawrence Island, along the western portions of Seward Peninsula, and down in the Yukon Delta as well. That could last through much of Wednesday. We could see winds up to as high as 65 miles per hour, and with those blowing snow conditions and the blizzard, visibilities could drop down to a quarter mile or less. We also have a couple of advisories on the northern side of the Seward Peninsula. In the more eastern locations, some of the strong winds coming in from the north are bringing in some blowing snow conditions right now to areas around Kotzebue Sound, and those could linger into Monday afternoon. And then on the far northwestern portions of the Seward Peninsula, we have winter weather advisory out for wind chills. Wind chills could drop down to minus 45 below, and that's going to be until Monday morning time frame. So look at our satellite imagery. We're going to start off over the Gulf of Alaska, where we have low pressure kind of just hanging out in the northern portions there. You can see the long fetch of moisture and clouds moving in to southeast Alaska. And now we're going to focus in on kind of the west coast here. We'll see some of the northerly flow coming down. A lot of cold air coming in from the north, extending down the west coast of the state. As we move to our today weather map, for Sunday, you can see some of the tighter isobars here that are indicating some of the northerly winds coming down the west coast of the state, aiding in the blowing snow conditions for northern side of the Seward Peninsula. It's also going to bring in some snow showers on the northern side of the Alaska Peninsula as well as the eastern Aleutian Islands. And then low pressure is kind of just sitting out here over the northern portion of the Gulf, bringing in some southwesterly flow out over the Panhandle area. This is going to bring quite a bit of rain to lower elevations, with some snow expected at higher elevations as we get closer towards the coastal mountains. Along the North Gulf Coast, we're going to continue to see snow as well. And as we move inland, starting to see some lighter snow for eastern portions of south central Alaska, as well as in the central and eastern interior, and up along many places along the north slope. Looking into tonight time frame, going to continue to see snow over much of the northern portion of the state, especially as we get into the eastern locations. That's going to extend down into south central Alaska, and our low pressure is just kind of hanging out here overnight tonight, continuing to bring that southerly flow and more moisture to the Panhandle area. Still expecting to see a lot of rain and snow, rain at lower elevations, snow as we get higher up. But along the west coast, starting to see some of those winds increase there, continuing northerly flow, more wind chills throughout tonight, and the potential for some blowing snow conditions to linger in some of those areas on the northern side of the Seward Peninsula, with some of that loose snow that's already on the ground. As we get down into the Bering Sea, northerly winds are going to bring snow showers throughout much of the Aleutian Islands and Alaska Peninsula. High pressure coming in from the west, clearing out a lot of the central and western portions of the Bering Sea. As we move into Monday, that ridging extends even farther to the east, pushing off snow to the eastern Aleutians throughout the Bristol Bay area. More northerly winds along the west coast, but starting to ease up some of those far western locations. Could even see some fog develop in the morning hours along the northwestern portions of the state. Low pressure just continues to be there in the northern portions of the Gulf of Alaska, seeing snow throughout many areas of south central down into southwest. And some of the reason for the expansion of snow into some of the areas around Bristol Bay is we're getting that reinforcement of cold air, helping to bring in more moisture with this low pressure system to areas of the southern mainland. Also going to see snow extending up to the eastern portions of the mainland and out along the northeastern part of the state. Continued southwesterly flow for the Panhandle is bringing more rainfall with some snow at some of the higher elevations. For Tuesday, continuing to see a low out in the Gulf of Alaska area. Some of that colder air coming in, pushing in some snow out into the central portions of the Gulf. We're going to see more rain on the eastern side of this with some of the southerly flow bringing up that warm air. More rain and snow expected for the Panhandle area. Throughout south central Alaska, we are going to have chances for some snow, lighter as we get to the more inland locations, and continue to see those chances of snow throughout the eastern portions of the state. Then we can see our next system coming in from the west, starting to bring some stronger winds and rain to the western Aleutian Islands. And we included an extra slide here today because we really wanted to show this system on Wednesday as it approaches the west coast. We're going to see a lot of stronger winds. You can see those really tightly packed isobars there indicating stronger winds out of a southerly direction, as well as quite a bit of snow along the west coast. This is where we have the winter storm watches out for St. Lawrence Island, the Yukon Delta area up to parts of the Seward Peninsula where blizzard conditions are possible late Tuesday night through Wednesday. Behind this system, still some stronger winds, but primarily rain behind it for the Aleutian Islands and Pribilof Islands as we move later into the day on Wednesday. This system will be progressing across the Bering Sea on Wednesday. Taking a look at our temperatures, starting off in south central Alaska, low temperatures Monday morning, dropping down into the 20s for most locations. A little warmer there at Kodiak, 30 degrees expected low, and then the mid 30s for much of the Panhandle. And Monday afternoon getting up into the lower to mid 40s for the Panhandle, and then in the upper 30s to near 40 degrees for south central Alaska. Tuesday morning dropping down into the mid 20s for most locations in south central. Glen Allen area getting colder, dropping down to 17 degrees on Tuesday morning, and then dropping down to the mid 30s for the Panhandle. Tuesday afternoon getting up into the mid to upper 40s for locations around the Panhandle, 49 expected high for Haines, in the 30s for the most part for south central Alaska, and the more inland locations getting up into the lower 40s. Moving up into the interior and northern portions of the state, all along the west coast, we're seeing that colder air come in from the north. Low temperatures Monday morning dropping down into the negative teens. But as we get over the interior where not as much of the colder air is coming in, temperatures dropping into the positive teens there. Monday afternoon getting up to near or just above freezing for some of the locations in the interior, but quite a bit colder as we get north of the Brooks Range. Single digits for the eastern portions of the North Slope and below zero single digits for the western locations and down the west coast. Tuesday morning dropping down once again to the negative teens for much of the west coast, negative 20s for the northwestern portions of the state, negative teens as we get to eastern locations in the North Slope, but staying warmer in that pocket of the interior, especially out east, only dropping down into the teens for the Fairbanks area. Tuesday afternoon highs getting back above freezing for much of the eastern interior, staying in the 20s as we get to more central locations. Getting up to near zero for many places along the Arctic coastline, and then the west coast getting into the positive single digits for those Tuesday afternoon highs. Monday morning lows for the Aleutian Islands are going to drop down to right around freezing or just below freezing as we get a little bit farther to the east. You can see some of the colder air making it down to southwest Alaska, dropping down into the single digits for the Kuskokwim Delta, and then into the 20s for the Bristol Bay area. Monday afternoon highs in southwest going to get into the positive single digits to lower teens for the YK Delta area, and then in Bristol Bay getting up to around 30 degrees. Just around freezing for the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutian Islands, and then as we get to the central and western Aleutian Islands into the upper 30s there. St. Paul only getting up to 24 degrees. Tuesday morning lows dropping just below freezing or near freezing for central and western Aleutian Islands. And for the Alaska Peninsula, dropping down into the teens, near 10 degrees for Bristol Bay area, and just below zero for much of the YK Delta area. Tuesday afternoon high is going to jump up into the teens for much of the YK Delta area, into the 20s for the Bristol Bay area, upper 20s as we get into the Alaska Peninsula, and then into the 30s to near 40 for the Aleutian Islands. For Alaska Weather, I'm David Kramer. Thanks for watching.